Development Corporation to be held on December 13th, 2023 at 8:30 a.m. at the McNeese Convention Center, South Meeting Room, 501 Rio Contra Drive, San Angelo, Texas, for the purpose of considering the following agenda items. Number one, we'll call the meeting to order. It is 8:30, and please bow your heads and join me in prayer. Father God, we come to you grateful and humble, and thank you for the many blessings you bestow on us. We ask you to guide our hearts and our minds as we govern over our city and our community, and help us, guide us, and make wise decisions and be good stewards of this great responsibility you have given us. We ask that during this holiday season, there'll be brothers and sisters in need of food and shelter, and please take care of them, comfort them, and bring joy to those of us and those around us, and help us serve this great community that we love each and every day. And thank you for your many blessings. In Jesus Christ's name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Number three, public comment. Issues or items that are not on the agenda may be raised by the public at this time. Citizens should speak from the podium, begin by stating their name, and limit remarks to less than 3 minutes. Board members may request that a discussed item be placed on a future agenda. The board takes public comments on all regular agenda items during the discussion of those items. Do we have any public comment? Okay, seeing none, we'll move on to number four, the consent agenda. A, consider approving the necessary corporation disbursement. B, consider approving the regular meeting minutes of November 15, 2023. C, consider approving the October 2023 financials. D, consider approving a resolution supporting the planning and construction of the future Interstate Highway 27 in Texas. And E, consider a resolution authorizing the investment policy for the City of San Angelo Development Corporation Fund for 2024. Do we have a motion? Okay. Do we have a second?
Second.
All right, we have a first by Director Rodriguez, second by Director Mantuf. Any discussion? None. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion passes. Thank you. We'll move on to item 5, the regular agenda. A, consider approving the proposed Costa DC meeting calendar for 2024. Presentation by Nora Navarez.
Good morning, board. Let me get this caught up right quick. So before you, I have a list of all of the Costa DC meetings. For our viewers, the meetings are held the fourth Wednesday of each month. But as you can see, for November and December, I bumped those up either on November, I bumped it to the third week. And then December, that's the second week. So I'm not sure if that's good or if we want to visit that before that meeting comes up, and if we need to reschedule that meeting at a different time, that's fine. But for now, this is what I have for you.
Okay. Any discussion or comments from the board? No? Okay. I think it looks good. And I know obviously we're meeting here today because of the change in the schedule and the room not being available where we normally meet.
That is correct.
So these would be already reserved for probably.
Well, if the East Mezzanine is not reserved in November and December, then you're looking at
Back
coming
here.
over here for those
Okay.
2 months. So.
Sounds good. We get the comfy chairs again in November and December. So, okay. Sounds good. Do we need a motion on that
Yes,
to approve?
please.
Okay. Can we get one from the board?
So move.
Okay. Do we have a second?
A second.
Okay. Any discussion? Okay, so we have first by Director Mahaffey, second by Director Gomez. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. All right, thank you. We'll move on to B, discuss amending the Affordable Housing Assistance Program guidelines to include rehabilitation of structures as an eligible activity and obtain board direction.
Good morning, board. See if I get
What
this
about-
working. Hey, how about that? It works. Just to get started, here's a quick overview of the program. As you know, my department manages and oversees the $335,000 annual gap financing program for new construction. But more importantly, the program supports neighborhood revitalization. Now, as long as the funds are used for affordable housing to benefit low, moderate income citizens based on HUD guidelines, the board can design a program as they wish, and they can include other types of programs such as rehabs, rentals, those kind of things, as long as it's eligible based on HUD guidelines. Over the years, we have made some changes to the guidelines. So there is precedence in amending the program. Initially, the guidelines consisted of $40,000 gap financing plus closing costs. At the time, we had 200 tax foreclosed properties that we sold for $750 under the urban redevelopment program. However, those tax lots quickly were sold, and we couldn't find them. They became unavailable. So we had to change the guidelines to include $5,000 for a lot purchase. Fortunately, construction and property costs continue to go up. So we had to come back to the board last year, and we amended the guidelines once again to include $50,000 gap financing and $15,000 for a lot purchase. And that was the last time we amended the guidelines. Let's give a little bit of history. This slide shows what the funds have been allocated for over the years. Besides the main AHAP program, which is the gap financing program, the board has allocated funds for rehabs and low-income housing tax credit projects, which are affordable rentals. So we've established a precedence there as well. Even with all the positives that new home construction provides, there are still a bunch of issues that we have to deal with. First, the continual rising cost of construction is forcing us to consider raising the gap once again in the future. That's if we continue with new home construction. Secondly, it's becoming increasingly difficult to find credit-worthy home buyers that will meet bank underwriting standards. So we have to be more selective, which has led us to consider alternatives such as rehabs. Here's a few before and after pictures to kind of give you an idea the impact of a rehab has in a neighborhood. Before and after. So you can see that it has a great impact on the curb appeal of a neighborhood. So staff is asking for consideration to perhaps amend the guidelines once again to include rehabs and maybe multifamily rental units if they're made available, for example. Anyway, we're asking here for your direction, see where the board would like to go with this program. But again, I think rehabs is a good way of doing that. We would probably focus on siding, windows, roofing, just exterior, again, because it's part of neighborhood revitalization. So that would be, I think, go a long way to helping revitalize these targeted neighborhoods. So I'm asking for direction from the board.
Any comments or feedback from the board?
Got a question. Who's actually doing the work of this? Painting, windows, siding?
Well, these pictures came from the Blitz. We had professionals. In fact, some of the money that Coastal DC allocated, those were the pictures from the Coastal DC funded neighborhood Blitz. We get professionals to go in there and do the siding, replace the siding. We have professionals do the windows and the roof, if need be. And then we have volunteers to come in and do the painting. But in this case, it would be strictly contractors. We have a list of contractors that we use on a regular basis. They're vetted through the city. They have the insurance. They have the experience, and that's what we would use. So I mean, we could probably continue using volunteers. In fact, we're doing a modified blitz based on your approval a couple of months back, which we're going to start in the fall. And we do have a group that's interested in helping paint to kind of continue the blitz concept. And that's what we're going to do this time. But again, we could use volunteers, but we would have professionals do the hard work, do the heavy lifting.
This is just a perspective of my own, I'm sure, but it seems like there's a lot of new construction in San Angelo that is not, has not yet been purchased. Or how are we doing, Max? You would know this as well as anyone. How are we sitting as far as available new construction?
Not a whole lot, to tell you the truth. I mean, there's a lot of construction going on. In my experience, a lot of those are selling pretty quickly.
Okay.
I mean, the price point, because of construction costs, like Bob mentioned, keeps going up. So, you know, it's hard to find anything under 200,000 really anymore. I mean, I think, you know, some of the more affordable, constructions are still pushing 170, 180 a square foot. So, you know, $200,000, you're getting maybe 1,200 square feet. And in order to keep the costs lower, they're doing carports maybe instead of a garage, just to keep costs down and so forth. So, and like Bob mentioned, it's hard to find the lot. I just had somebody reach out to me this week looking for available lots, low cost, and good luck finding anything under, 20,000 anymore, anywhere. Basically. So, average sales price is about the 240, 250. So, in general, in San Angelo real estate market. So, new construction for 200 to 250 is what they're building, but it's gone usually as soon as you build it.
So is the demand for new construction like we've been funding, is that waning?
Well, the big problem, I think, for our clientele, our baseline anyway, is that they get priced out of the housing market as it stands right now. So we have to kind of we have to provide some subsidies, of course, and that's what this program's about. We're talking about new home, relatively younger individuals that qualify for that small window to get qualified, because you can't make more than a certain amount to get the mortgage, but you can't make less, because otherwise you won't get the mortgage itself. So there's this very small window we're talking about for our clients. Oh, there we go again. Just kind of have to walk around a little bit. I guess start making do exercises or something up here. Anyway, so the problem is that they want new home construction, of course. Where do these people go? Where do they go buy a home, a brand new home? And the answer is difficult for them because of all these things. The cost of the rising cost of new home construction. The market is inevitable for them. It's not there for them. So we have to try to get them into new homes. Now, does everybody have to have a brand new home construction? Well, no, it doesn't have to. I mean, someone that wants to get into a home, what's the first time you do? You usually buy an existing home, do you not? That's typically what we do. I did anyway. I'm sure people buy for a brand new home. So that's why we kind of we're considering perhaps something like this. So when they do buy a home, it may not be a new home, but it'll be a decent home. So this would be another way of going if you want to consider
the
this.
remodeling and the renewals that you showed us a few moments ago. What's the average cost of doing that work?
Okay.
The siding and the
Well, that's a good question, because we started relatively cheap, about $5,000 per unit. Now we're going up to about $12,000.
Okay, so well under.
It'd be way under. It'd be way under the 40, obviously. And that's where I say about 12 to 15,000. We're talking about, depending on how much work we have to do, how big the house is, and all that. If you want to do if you want to re-roof it and siding and windows, we're pushing 17, 18,000.
So, Bob, I've got a couple of questions, and I'm excited about this program, and I'm excited about the out-of-the-box thinking to try to, help more people and stretch the budget. So, a couple of questions. One, another $335,000 is allocated from the ballot side, and that's on the ballot. I'm wondering, do we have any latitude to increase that if we so choose? Is that something that is, like, if we wanted to increase that amount, do we have that latitude to do that?
I'm not sure that we can do that on the ballot side. I think we could do something on the economic development side, but we want to run that.
Yeah, so for the ballot side, I think it'd have to go through the election to change that. But there is still, as an authorized project in the act itself, affordable housing. So I think you would take that through just like we do any other project, but it would just be like a one-time deal.
Okay.
But you could do that.
Okay, so that's number one. And two, as you mentioned, what we've done historically for the new construction is subsidize the cost through that gap financing. And then, as you know, Brandon experienced like about a year ago or so, we ran into some clients who had some, financial challenges, and we were in danger of foreclosing. Oh yeah, awesome, good, yeah. But so obviously that puts us in a risk position. I know that money gets forgiven as time goes on. So the money that's spent on these rehabs, the 12,000, 15,000, is that forgiven as well? That's just a
Yes.
one time, right? So
No, we forgive everything.
so potentially, if we could rehab 3 houses at, say, even 12, 15,000 for subsidizing one new construction on the gap financing at 40 or 50,000, potentially, and mitigate some of that risk with them having to pay it back, or pay, be in a second position, quite honestly, because we're forgiving that anyway. So, and with the rising costs, I mean, I think this is a very responsible and effective approach, in my personal opinion.
Another opportunity, perhaps another program design could be if for us to buy existing homes, flip them, and sell them ourselves. The problem comes. In fact, we used to do that. The city, we had an individual that used to do that for us. But you have to have a certification to do that, and we lost our certification, and so therefore we have to do everything deferred loans. We can't go set up a loan program for these things. We'd have to, but we could probably outsource that somehow. That'd be an option. We just go out and flip. And we'll get one of our contractors, probably Galley, because they're the ones that do the cheapest, and then go out there and buy them for us, fix them, and then we have a long list of home buyers. So they're not new homes, but they're still nice homes. They help with the revitalization process, perhaps not as much as a new home construction, but you saw the pictures. The pictures are going to show you that these make a big impact on the neighborhood.
Yeah.
So that's another option too. We haven't really fleshed that out, but that could be a possibility.
How many cases have you found where it's lipstick on a pig? I mean, the outside of the home now looks just fabulous, but you walk into it and it's dilapidated and plumbing is bad and that sort of thing.
Yeah, we actually have programs for that. We have a different program. My community development block grants, the grant funds that I get from HUD, that we have programs to help the inside, emergency repairs for plumbing issues, ADA bathrooms, electrical repairs. We don't do a lot of cosmetics. We don't do sheetrock, for example. We don't do that part, but we do enough to keep the house safe and safe from hazards. So we would piggyback off of our programs to help a house. We go into now we flip it. We would flip it to a standard. We would make sure everything works. Everything is new. Not totally new, but it'd be workable. Everything would work obviously. So.
Well, this all makes great sense to me. Are we ready to approve this as a project?
I do have a question.
Not quite yet.
No.
We're not.
Okay.
We're just direction right now. We'll come back next year, probably in January, February, with
All right.
a guideline, with a presentation on what exactly we want to look at and how we want to execute that program. Yes, sir.
You have on there, Bob, look at other options such as multifamily rental units. Who are the owners of the multifamily rental units where
Yeah.
you would be doing some sort of rehab or upkeep too? Because I just want guideline on that because wouldn't that be the responsibility of the owner of the multifamily rental unit?
This would be for a nonprofit. For example, Galilee has earmarked some funding to purchase a small,
I'm familiar with that.
like 8-unit apartment complex for special needs individuals. I think individuals that have gone out, they have graduated from the system, if you will, from the foster system, and they're on their own, and they can't find a place. They age out, unfortunately. When you age out, they just kick you out, and you're out. You're on your own. No support, no place to go. No funding, no money. So this program is going to help, is going to do that. So we're probably going to come to the board, even if it's just for a one-time amount, we're going to come to you asking you to help us fund that program too. It's an important program, but it would be a nonprofit. It wouldn't be for private owners. We kind of lose, because you have to control that. You have to control who goes in because of the HUD guidelines. You have to manage. You have to vet the clients. Everybody has to be low, moderate income. So we would not want to have a private person, owner, taking care of that process. We have to do that ourselves.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. So a lot of opportunities to change this program to make it look, to kind of fit our needs right now. Like I said, new home construction is great. I mean, but it's getting more expensive, and it's getting more difficult to find home buyers that meet our criteria.
Okay, awesome. Brandon, did you want to give that update now, or did you want to do that
Yeah,
later?
sure. So of the 3 that we had paid the mortgage payment, one's still in bankruptcy and probably will be for a while, but I'm still getting notices and stuff on that. The other 2, as of Monday, they're fully paid off, so we did recoup those payments we made on those 2.
All right, good deal.
And although we haven't really had many foreclosures, we've had a lot of threats lately. I think we've only had really one over the years. So it's actually a pretty good rate for us. But I think it'll get worse. It's going to get worse because it's.
So on that note, I know we had challenges with the lender once they switched companies or got bought out, the lender we were using. So I guess if we do continue to support the GAP, financing, then are we, I guess, going to pursue other local lenders and see?
Yeah, we would,
partners?
and we're always doing that. We're always trying to reach out to individuals that want to do it. But again, it's kind of unique that you have to have escrow accounts internal. You have to manage that, and if you don't have an internal escrow program, it's hard to sell that loan out in the market like normally. So people don't like to do that for some reason because we carry a loan. So when you sell a note, there's a lien on it, our lien, and nobody wants to buy one with a lien, with an extra lien on it. This just doesn't. It's
It
not
really needs to be
profitable
like an
for them.
in-house loan for them that they need to keep in-house and not sell.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
That's-
So it
that's
won't
the-
conform to the guidelines. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So anyway, if you're all comfortable with this, we'll come back to you with an actual proposal to change the guidelines, what the guidelines would look like, what the program design would be, and at that point you would approve it if you guys are comfortable with this direction.
Okay.
Max, if I could, Bob, I'm sorry to spring this on you. I just had an idea. You mentioned a nonprofit working with clients who have special needs. Is there a requirement that to be considered housing that the resident has to live there for a certain period of time? In other words, if there was a transitional occupancy situation where the clients had special needs operated by a nonprofit, I mean, what sort of residency or length of stay would be necessary for qualification? Do we know that, or is that something for the 3 of us, you and Brandon and I, to work
Well,
on?
I could tell you that how you craft your design, if you want to consider it as a transitional, we decide what that is. It could be for 12 months, it could be 18 months, it could be something else. As long as they're income eligible, I think you meet the HUD guidelines and requirements. So
Okay.
there's not a lot of.
The income eligibility might be the challenge for,
That's what it is. It's the eligibility. But otherwise, you can design it any way you want to.
all right, thank you.
All right. No other questions? Thank you very much, Bob, for everything you do and for your information. Thank you.
All right,
Thanks,
thank
Paul.
you. We'll come back to you in the next couple of months.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, we'll move on to item C. Consider accepting the 2022 City of San Angelo Development Corporation audit presentation by Michael Muncy.
Morning, Board.
Morning.
Compliance audit was conducted for COCDC's contract activity for fiscal year '22. There was a total of 22 contracts reviewed. 13 of them were BREP agreements, or BREP projects, and 9 of them were business plan competition winners. There was a little more than $2 million dispersed out to miscellaneous vendors for the assigned projects. At the conclusion of the audit, there was only one finding. Business had failed to submit a current certificate of insurance. Staff had reached out multiple times but was unsuccessful. As for the rest of the contracts, they were in compliance and no action was taken. I do have a recommendation to the board to consider. In previous years, businesses have submitted their biannual reports late. And so as it states in the business plan competition agreements, the first biannual reports are submitted to staff on or before 30 days after the 6-month anniversary of the effective date of the agreement. After that, reports are periodically submitted 6 months for the 3-year period. My recommendation is to consider adding a deadline to the reporting requirements after that initial first reporting period. So with that, do y'all have any questions?
Max, what we would do is follow up with Michael on that recommendation and Brandon and work that into a draft agreement for the next business plan competition cycle. It's a good idea. Specific deadlines are not a bad idea. I know that we struggle to get paperwork in after a project has gone through and it's in its compliance period. So it's a good idea, even if it did come from the auditor.
Would your recommendation be that it follow the same calendar that the others follow, the every 6 months and like that?
At least a 30 to 60-day window at the end of that 6-month period, yes, sir.
Okay.
What is the ultimate penalty for not submitting that?
There's really no repercussions in the agreements from what I read, but maybe that's something we could also consider.
I mean, if they totally didn't submit a report, I mean, we'd send them a mean letter saying they're in default and potentially, recouping, the funds that we paid them back. But hopefully that wouldn't get to that point.
Yeah. And usually whenever we have these or whenever COCDC staff has this trouble, they usually do submit it, but it's later on. But we eventually get that paperwork.
But usually, we've given them the money first, so it's not like we could withhold funds, right, until we get it because it's a 3-year. Yeah, okay.
And what is your audit schedule? How often are you auditing these?
Usually audit them yearly.
Annually? Okay.
Yeah, and again, so again, if there's no repercussions, we've already given them the money. If, or we give them the money as a reimbursement, right? Because they'll spend it on whatever we're going to spend it and then we reimburse them, right? For that is how it works. So then, I mean, is there a need, I'm just throwing it out there, for those reports, or what are we doing with that information? We're collecting it, and then what are we doing with those reports anyway? Because we've already given them the money, they've already spent it. What's our benefit to collecting that data? What are we doing with that information?
Well, mostly when they are submitting for a request for their funding, if, I guess what I could, or I'll get with Brandon to see if I've not received documents that I've needed for the first 6 months, that we not give them the remaining funding, because they still have 3 years to use that money.
Right.
So if they're not in compliance, maybe we can just hold off until they've submitted their
Right.
requirement needs.
No, I get that, but if they spend it 2 months out, and they give us whatever they need to, they give us receipts, why are we getting, I would say as a business owner, if I, received it, and I think we had a complaint a couple of years ago with somebody that had, questions about some of the reporting that we were asking for, is why do you need my information, 2 years from now when I already spent the money and I did what I did to earn it? I've got reimbursed for it, so why are you asking me for my money or my reports 2 years from now? Yes.
Max, I'm not gonna accuse you of bugging the offices, but we just recently did have a conversation about what makes sense for a post-project reporting period and reports from the clients. What makes sense from a contracting and follow-up perspective? What makes sense from a managing how much bureaucratic workload we create for ourselves and for the clients? And so you might get an invitation to a meeting to talk about that. Because that is exactly the kind of thing we were talking about. What do we do that creates the necessity for a long-term post-project, post-contract execution follow-up period that creates an audit burden, an administrative follow-up burden,
Absolutely.
paperwork reporting burden that was at the heart of the finding we had this time.
Right.
And so we had that conversation, and it sounds to me like we're not done having that conversation. That
I agree. I mean, go ahead.
If I'm hearing Max right, it sounds to me like it should be amended to say that it is up to a certain number of years after the project or until the sunset of the completion of the project. I mean, if the project is completed, the money was spent, the money was reimbursed, it seems to me that ought to be done.
exactly. What are we going to call victory?
Right.
What is our objective?
I mean, if
When we
anything-
satisfy that objective, we declare victory. And
Absolutely. I
Move
mean,
on.
I see that it could potentially be a disincentive for people to apply for the small business competition program if the reporting requirements are burdensome, on their part.
I seem to remember another business plan that won the competition that never got off the ground, that the money that it was intended for was never spent, the construction never happened, nothing was ever done to go through with the plan, and in that case, you don't give them the money, correct?
Right.
Yeah.
And that's exactly the situation I was referring to a couple of years ago.
Now,
Yeah.
I have two that have not used the funding because when they won, the construction cost was very expensive. But since they have collected some of their money already, and then I have another one that they will be getting in touch with me next week, as a matter of fact, to collect some of their funding.
Yeah, so I think, it's a great opportunity. I know we had discussed about, or we voted for that, right? Increasing the money for the business plan competition for next year.
Correct.
So I think with these findings, and I think, it's, a great opportunity to just revamp all of that. I mean, I think, obviously with Desiree at the Small Business Development Center, this is like her second year now. I think, she's kind of,
As the director.
I'd be interested in her input as well.
Yes.
With her experience, and good opportunity just to take a look at everything. We're doing that, on the board. We talked in our executive meeting about all the policies in place. I think it's healthy to, look at that every so often. So I think that's something else we should look at, so.
Okay.
Cool. Any other comments or feedback from the board? No? All right, Michael, well, appreciate it.
Thank you.
Very much. Yeah.
Thank you.
All right, then we will move. Oh, do we need a motion for that? Good?
I don't think so.
Okay. So then, yeah.
Is there a management response that's submitted for this? And if so, who does that?
we probably won't put anything in writing, but we agree with the idea that a deadline is appropriate for follow-up paperwork. However, I think we also opened another can of worms in that we want to examine how long that post-project reporting period should be and what should the documentation be. Does that lend itself to, or is that part of what we would say is the desired outcome, creation of jobs and maintaining those jobs for 3 years or 6 years or whatever? Is that a key component? Or is there a shorter follow-up compliance kind of a time frame associated with that? So I guess the official response is we support the recommendation, and I think we will find it somewhere in the documentation. However, we also might modify or propose modifications to other elements of those requirements, in that we shorten them up or tie, instead of a standardized slate of reporting requirements, we may tie the post-contract reporting requirements to whatever we decide the victory is. If it's associated with a capital investment, then that's one thing. But if it's job creation and retention, that might create a longer time period and a different set of documents that we won't follow up with. So would you like to see a specific kind of a response other than that, or does that satisfy?
I was just asking what would suffice to close this audit out. I mean, is there a written response that's necessary, or you just take direction from this board?
Just direction from the board, and then meeting internally with staff and see if there's something we can figure out to come together. And I'm sure it'll be brought back to y'all after, I guess, the contract will.
I think with regard specifically to a specific deadline, I think since it came up as an audit finding, I think we want to have a response and work with Brandon and show that. Go ahead, Brandon.
Well, I was going to say, Nora's gotten me the agreements for this current year, and so I wonder if we ought to have that conversation sooner rather than later and incorporate it into those, so.
They'd be great to working in this year. However, when they apply, we give them a draft copy of the contract,
Well,
and we'd
that's
be
true. Yeah.
changing the terms.
That's true.
And so, to the extent that we can implement for this cycle, that'd be great. If we can't, then certainly we want to follow up for the next cycle.
I guess if the reporting requirements become less burdensome, I think they'd be probably in favor of
Yeah,
that, but
I
yeah.
mean, no one's gonna complain that they don't have to send, future reports or anything, but I would say so, Nora, I mean, obviously, we just finished the business plan competition recently, but when does the process start over again as far as the application and the marketing and so forth for next year?
The next kickoff won't be until August, so I have plenty of time to where I can work with Brandon and we can do that. I will say that as Michael said, those have already received a copy of it. It still has not been signed, so I can work with Brandon, we can work with staff to see if there's a less reporting,
Yeah.
They would probably appreciate that, so.
Yeah, and again, I think, no one's gonna complain if you say, hey, instead of 3 years, we're only gonna need 2 years. But I think to Rick's point, before, I think once, the money's been dispersed, the reports have been received, to collect future data that's not being used and, not being supported or submitted in a timely manner anyway, seems a little redundant and unnecessary personally. But, so whether that's a year or 3 years or 5 years, if we have to amend it where we've done in the past where the monies haven't been spent, I'm okay with that. I just don't see the need, once it's been closed, really, the money's been dispersed,
Once the money's
why are
been
we asking for more reports? And if anything, that might incentivize them to spend the money faster, right? Knowing that the reporting will stop once the project is complete. So I would say as a follow-up item, I guess we could add it to the agenda just so it doesn't fall off the radar, but maybe sometime between now and next June to maybe just have a follow-up on this item. And again, I'm happy to meet.
I like that.
Be part of that, meeting, but I think, Desiree should be involved as small business development, Nora, of course, and, Brandon and so forth. And again, I'm happy to be involved in that conversation as well, because we don't want to disincentivize participation because we're, redundant and unnecessary reporting, in my opinion.
Okay.
But we want.
Sound like the government.
Exactly, yeah. So if we want to be pro-business, I think
Yes,
that's
of
one
course.
of those red tapes that if we could cut that, I think, that'll benefit
work.
everybody. So,
Okay, I'll get some scheduled.
okay, cool. Well, thanks again, Michael.
Thank you.
All right, so number 6, follow-up and administrative issues. A, announcements and consideration of future agenda items, which we just kind of added one thing there. Is there anything else that anyone would like to see? And if not, then A, discuss scheduling the affordable housing tour, which we had scheduled but weren't able to execute on about a month ago or so.
There we go. I actually looked at the calendar to provide you all a couple of dates here, so you might check your calendars to see if one of these dates might work for you all. And if not, as we had discussed prior, we could also do the tours. Bob can also do that and take you in the truck, and we'll just take you all around.
Yeah, I would say for me, the 9th and the 11th look good. The 4th would have to, if we're doing it in
Yeah.
the morning, if it's the 4th, the afternoon would be better at this point for me, but, and that's gonna be hard to get consensus, yeah.
Okay?
The last time we talked about this, we talked about separating it from a meeting date.
Right, yeah, just.
We
to
could
be-
also pile it on to a meeting date if we're gonna have a short, we're gonna be done pretty quickly here in a few minutes. If we had the bus sitting outside, we could still have a reasonable intrusion into the calendar and get it done on a meeting date if that suits you.
Yeah.
If it looks like it's gonna be a short meeting in January, we could.
And I think it's better to leave it separate, just.
I'm good with that.
In case things go longer or what have you, in my opinion. I think we talked about that in the past too, right? Just,
If you put it like late morning and you feed me, you're guaranteed to get me on that bus.
We can make that arrangement.
so, does anyone else have any conflicts or that?
January 9th and 11th have a conflict, so I'm only available the 4th.
Okay. Well, the 4th would work for me, but it would be in the afternoon, so we could do maybe a lunch meeting and then go, or that.
Well, a couple of options. We can break it up, and if we got a big group, we can do a catch-up tour with one or two, or we can search for more dates. Whatever suits the board, we're good with.
Yeah, that worked too, or we could break it up into 2 dates. That way whoever can make one or the other.
You want to shoot for the 4th then, or shoot for another date?
I would say maybe if the 4th, if that works, as the first date, and then maybe the 11th as a follow-up.
Anybody
for
that
those who
can't make it,
Yeah,
we'll do a follow-up. We'll have a makeup exam.
yeah, there you go. So somebody give me the questions first, right? Whoever goes on the 4th. Okay,
Okay?
that'll work, 4th and the 11th, and then let us know. Thank you, Nora.
Okay, thank you.
Any requests for where we go for lunch?
I don't know. I don't even know what I want for breakfast yet today, so. We'll cross that bridge. I'm sure we'll figure something out. All right, cool. Well, then, if nothing else, then I will entertain a motion for adjournment.
So moved.
Second.
All right. It's 9:13. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All right. Thank you, everybody. Happy holidays, Merry Christmas, Happy New Year. See y'all next year.